Football managers then, are they all a bit strange, a bit weird, a bit tapped? Do they have to be to cope with the stresses and strains of the spotlight? Is it because of that spotlight that we might think that? Is it because every word and every movement and every decision is examined to a ridiculous degree? What do you reckon, mate? Do you reckon that, you have to be a certain type of person to go into that world? It is a bit wild, isn't it, to be a football manager when you take a step back?
Would you said funny, like you started that intro and then just be on your agenda, it just says thoughts, question marks, weirdos, or I've noticed that every time, this is a tangent straight away, as is our one. Like every time you do an intro, I can't help but like pull funny faces at like the camera. What? And then like look around. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like I don't know what to do with myself at the start of the show. Joe, when you're introing, like, should I look at the camera or should I look at you?
Be really sincere.
Be dead sincere.
Yeah.
So this is my pitch to be a weird football manager. Yeah, I think they are. Well, we're gonna read out a load of examples, aren't we? And I think even the least weird ones are a bit odd. And my thinking, like, I think everything's on a scale. And I think this with genius and madness. Everyone says there's a thin line. Like, I don't think it's a thin line. I just think it's a spectrum. So, like, if you want to be a genius, you're always going to be dancing with madness, and there's always going to be times when, like, you drift into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even we're going to mention Klopp or like Liverpool's manager later, and even people like him who generally are sound, you can see they're a little bit mad.
Yeah.
And they do often. We've said this through the years. Klopp is so sound and being funny and all of that, it's covered up loads of his oddness. Everyone's sort of turned the blind eye to loads of it, I think. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the likes of Hodgson, I've said over the years, Klopp has said various things that if they'd come out the mouth of Hodgson, everyone would have been like, he's fucking weird, him. But because it's Klopp and because we love him and because he's funny, you just sort of go, we'll let him off with that. It's a bit like Guardiola. Like Guardiola he's not even on your list, is he? But he's a proper oddball.
He is.
He's a proper oddball.
Even when you saw, like, inside, when they did the documentary and things like that, he was a bit strange, wasn't he? I think, and that's sort of like, why I did the show, really, because on this, because I just think, like, to get where they've got to, the traits you need, like, one of them's essentially being a bit of a nerd, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be really nerdy about footy to, like, to a ridiculous degree. You've got to, like, live it, essentially. Think about it every breath you're taking, you're thinking about football in some way. And okay, at the very top, well rewarded and all that. But, as you go down the scale, not so. And like, I just think it's funny as well. Like, there's a million, the fly on the walls we've had over the years. There's always a clip of a manager losing it or whatever, isn't there? Like, remember Peter Reid swearing his head off on the Sunderland one. Who's that fella as well? Is it John Sinnott, I think his name is?
Oh, the famous one, like the lower division one.
You big cunt, and you little cunt. And then he goes, and you can team up and you can bring your dinner. He basically offers them out in the change room.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely amazing.
There's loads of that, though. Those ones, the behind the scenes, I think there are. And the Guardiola one, I think, is the best one of them, because I think, and you'll never get this until they've all retired, but I've got a feeling if you got certain City players to one side and they could speak honestly, and you said to them, do you feel like there's a bit of like Emperor's New Clothes in this? Like, everyone believes Guardiola's amazing, so he is amazing. Because there were times when he was saying stuff in the changes, and the looks on people's faces was like, just like bewilderment. Like, they're looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. They weren't looking at him like, yeah, he's a fucking genius, this guy. Like, he's really inspiring me. It was like, this is all a bit odd. But I can imagine later, like, someone going, no, he's fucking genius.
I mean, well, there's the stuff you see yourself, isn't it? And there's the stuff you read that players say. Like, I read something from one of their players over the weekend where they were saying, he's that good that, like, when they're playing the game, the exact things that he said are going to happen in the game happen. And he said, he almost like gets you to visualize what's going to do, what you're going to do and how it's going to pan out. And he said, and it does pan out like that. And he said, it's weird. He can like infuse you with this information almost. And I was thinking, well, that's good. But then the flip side to that is, do you remember that clip of him where he's in the changes and someone put the David Brent thing to it,
yeah, and he's like bouncing around,
and he's stepping forward and stepping back, and all
I think that's the scene I'm remembering where people are looking at him like. But I guess in those moments, I guess what I've just been saying about Klopp applies, doesn't it? In those moments, they're probably like, we'll just let him away with that because remember on
Klopp
Saturday.
Said no, didn't he? Klopp said he would never do one of them. He
behind the scenes thing, did he?
He specifically said that will not happen while I'm at Liverpool. And obviously, we had B in Liverpool way back when, and that didn't do many people many favours. I
don't think it does anyone any favours, does it? Because I think it's a bit like Joe and magicians.
Mourinho come out well of his though. I watched
that's
some
a
of
good
that
point actually. Yeah,
and I went from really hating him. Because all the stuff he did to Liverpool and, shushing us and, running up and down the sideline when he was dressed as a tramp and, all of that kind of stuff. When I watch some of that, I watch a fair bit of it and, he loses his dog dies, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And things like that. And you were like, see, he's all right.
Yeah.
He's just he's all right. And I seen a clip the other day of him actually, which was really nice, where he was talking about one of the Roma players. Have you seen this?
Don't think so.
And, it's a kid who's a local lad and he's come through the ranks and everything, and he's standing with Mourinho, and Mourinho's saying this kid used to come to train him, and watch through the gate, watch everyone training and now he's in the team, and he was saying he told us that, and he said I used to be one of those kids, and he said so we let the kids in today, we let them in to watch the training. And blah, 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 blah. And you just thought it's
nice that
he's all right, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's all right. But equally he's done mad things, hasn't he? Gouging people's eyes and absolutely losing the plot in press conferences and all that kind of stuff. So that brings me to another question, really. Do you think that we just put too much pressure on them? Because what I find bizarre is how they're almost like the media makes them figureheads on things. Where I just think they're just a fella who knows loads about footy and they're trying to set up a footy team to get points. Why are you asking Eddie Howe about the Sycamore Gap tree?
Well, it's
what's
funny
he got? Who's that?
Mate, it's funny you put that in the agenda because I saw a clip on it was on the BBC Sports app, do you know what I mean, or BBC Twitter or something, and showed the clip of him and he looked really concerned about it. And I was watching thinking, has he got some affiliation with it? Did he grow up around it?
No.
Does he walk past it all the time? And I just couldn't be arsed looking into it. But exactly that point. I do. We have, and especially look at our club. We have this. We like to deify them, don't we? But I think that's a societal thing as well. We like to, and it's our society very much. We like to build people up so then we can knock them down. And I do think it's all just a bit odd. We're all in search. Well.
Postacoglu's a prick now, isn't it?
Well, that's it. One thing. He only had to say one thing and I was boo.
Yeah, that's it now. Forget it.
You can't be Liverpool's manager now.
I thought he was sound. I loved him. I was watching all content about him. But now he says that he wouldn't have let Liverpool score if the referee asked him to solve that mad situation the other week. I'll sack him then.
Yeah, fuck him. Yeah. But do you know what's funny about that? Again, he didn't need to say anything, did he? He didn't need to answer that question. He could have just gone, that never happened, so I don't even need to think about it. And it's unlikely to happen, judging by what's gone on since.
Think my little theory on him, by the way, off-piste for a second, I think he is getting pissed off being the Sam fella.
Yeah, I do.
Because
I've got onto that.
Did you get onto it? Yeah, because there was something they did the other day where they did some jokey thing in the press conference. I can't remember it properly.
They played Happy Days.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And he was just
and it was like,
he was like, what the fuck?
I've had this with people. He looked at them as if to say, I'm not your mate.
Yeah.
This is your job is to ask me questions about a footy match. So fuck off.
Yeah. And you've come in and you've played Happy Days.
Yeah. And he does this chuckle as if to say, yeah. It's a bit like when the fella they brought the Harry Kane shirt.
Yeah, that was bad.
And you can tell I've picked up that as well. Honestly, the same that it's I don't want to be the sound one.
Yeah.
I just want to be a footy manager. Why can't we just talk about me being a boss footy manager if that's what you want to talk about? We don't need the rest of it.
Yeah. And I think slowly he's I've had enough of this now. And he's going to do one.
But isn't it funny? I think he's just got there quicker than Klopp did, probably because he's older. Because did you get on to Klopp at the weekend? Klopp has referenced a few times in the past week being older now. And like and I think that the thing that happened last week with Spurs has burnt him one last time. And I think we'll see a lot more from Klopp now going, I'm not getting involved.
Yeah.
I'm too old for this. I can't be fucking arsed. What's the point? Why are you even asking me? And because he has done that for a while now. You turned it back on the press. He did it post-match. I don't know whether you saw an interview. I don't know whether it was with Sky or someone anyway. And I know we do 100 interviews post-match. But a female reporter asked him the question about, and he just reversed it back on air. He went, I haven't seen it back. What do you think? And she did the like shit house answer. Oh, well, no one's interested in what I think. And he was like laughing, like, stop fucking asking me then. Why can't you just have an opinion? And he did it in the press conference, didn't he? Hands up. I like the way he did that though. Rather than ask individual people so they wouldn't shit out, he said hands up who thought it was a goal scoring opportunity. And people obviously put their hands up because it's safer to do that, isn't it? You're not on camera, no one knows who it was. But I think that's where he's got to with the same thing. Fuck off. I can't be arsed. Stop asking me.
Well, he's right, isn't he? Because, as he said the other week, all that happens is he'll lose money, he'll get fined, he'll get himself into trouble. Even an argument to say, because he's had a go at referees so many times and it's got personal with the likes of Tierney and stuff like that, you could argue Liverpool might be paying a bit of a price for that. Do you know what I mean? And so now, if he just decides to almost go no comment on everything, you can't blame him.
Well, it goes beyond that. Like, without getting too deep into it, something that wound me up actually, and I feel like I need to say this out loud to get it out of my system. It really annoyed me during COVID that they were asking managers about COVID, and managers were having to give their reply to a highly political, highly sensitive topic. They're fucking football managers, and I've seen him tell a story about that. Like, have you seen the moment? I think it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him. Told us about meeting a brain surgeon, and the fella was like, oh my God, Jurgen Klopp, it's amazing what you do. I couldn't do what you do. And Klopp went to him, what do you do? And he went, I'm a brain surgeon. And Klopp was like, oh, fuck off. Like, why do you think I'm the important one? Yeah. Like, all I do is manage a load of lads to play footy. You fucking cut people's heads open and operate on their brain. You're more important than I am. And the fella's like, no, you're Jurgen Klopp. And you could tell even in that story, he's like, even he thinks it's ridiculous.
I mean, I think, if you take a bit of a step back and have a think about it, I think, making them contractually obliged to do those interviews, like literally seconds after the final whistle when, their emotions are so high and, there's obviously situations like decisions going against you or whatever, or you may concede the last minute goal, whatever, there's a million and one scenarios. That is harsh, that isn't it, when you think about it? Because that, we know why it's there. The broadcasters want the manager losing his shit. They want to see him fume and they want to see him get into trouble and all of those things. And it's like, it's harsh, that, isn't it, really, when you think about it? Yeah. It's a bit snide. And they're trying to get half-time interviews on the go, aren't they? And what was the other one as well?
Well, did I hear someone say in American sports they're interviewed fucking constantly?
Yeah, like
in between
changes
quarters
and all kinds.
They've always got a mic under them saying, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Like, fucking hell, imagine that.
Well, they did that for a bit, didn't they? I think it was BT Sport were doing that. They showed non-league games or conference, and they were doing that. They had a reporter on the sidelines, basically going up to the manager in the game and fucking sticking a microphone under his nose and asking him questions. And who agreed to that? You know what I mean? You'd be like, do what, mate? And I'm watching my team trying to win a game of footy.
I was about to say someone will end up getting chinned there.
Yeah,
but that's exactly as what you said. Exactly what the broadcasters want, isn't it? That's dreamland for a broadcaster, isn't it? If they can get a manager to chin a reporter. Because sometimes I listen to some of the questions. I can't even remember his name, but it's the lad who does loads of the stuff for Sky. And he do, in fairness to him, I'm thinking Klopp's a big fella. Do you know, he fucking pushes it. And sometimes Klopp looks at him as if to say, and not just Klopp, by the way, we're talking about Klopp, but he's in our mind, but other managers look at them as if to say, you best fuck off, mate. Exactly. We're in an enclosed space here. For people who've never seen behind the scenes, when you get to see where they do those interviews, they're a bit mad, aren't they?
Tiny,
sometimes they're just in a closet, aren't they?
Yeah.
And because they've got those boards behind, it looks like it's deceptive.
Yeah.
You think it's in a big room, but it's in a tiny space. So often they have to push past them to get past them. And he did it last week. He was he asked one question, I can't remember what it was, and Klopp looked at him as if to say, you best get out my fucking way.
Yeah.
And he pushed past him. And the fella did it a nervous chuckle.
The fella used to do it, didn't he? What was he called? Jeff
Shreves.
Shreves, yeah, I used to hate him. because I hated the way that he was almost like doorstepping them, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And like he'd sort of like get in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, there's been so. I mean, you know, on the other side of all this is there's been moments, hasn't there, from managers all over that we've absolutely buzzed off as fans. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Hodgson. Well, I think you're taking the piss.
Yeah, I love that.
And it was
when
like
their mask slipped.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, like I made him start the interview again.
Yeah.
And like the fella was just like, you know, it was like one of the BBC well-spoken fellas and he wasn't. He wasn't taking the piss, was he? It was just Hodgson was fuming.
He just pressed something. Yeah, he'd press the button.
I mean,
that was funny, that one though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. That. I mean, we mentioned Klopp a couple of times already. I've got him down here to just say that, you know, I did think that an example of these microphones being stuck in front of them all the time. Like, I think he went rogue over that replay thing. I don't think that was
we haven't talked about it, have we? But we exchanged messages about it. When you listen to the full,
it's not the club line whatsoever, and you know the fact that you can hear Tony Barrett in the background saying we're still exploring options.
It's the tone of voice. It's Tony's tone of voice. For anyone who doesn't, like, you know him, don't you? You're mates with him, and like I've seen, because I know him not personally, but through I've seen him coming through the ranks, basically followed his career. Do you know what I mean? I remember him being the Echo reporter, and he was really good. And then he went to the Times and all that, and he went to Joe. And so you followed him, and then I'm mates with you, so I know him through that. And if you really just listen to the tone of voice when Klopp turns and go, so what's the club like? What are the club doing? And you can hear in Tony's voice, it's like he wants to go to him. What the fuck have you done? You've just made my life a fucking misery for the next week here. And look what's happening. We've got opposition fans now singing, we want a replay in the middle of a game. Like, there was no need for that, Jürgen. You've thrown us all under a fucking bus.
Yeah. And it's funny as well, isn't it? Because he said before that, you know, he doesn't do social media, he doesn't get involved in all that world. Whether you believe him's another thing, because I know for a fact that he said, certainly to, you know, us when I was involved with the Anfield app, and I know he said to Paul from Redmen TV that he watches the fan content, basically. So it's not the biggest leap to see that he'd end up on social media as well. So, you know, I don't know, you know, he's a clever man. I don't know how he doesn't think like you've just literally, you know, you've set social media alight with that comment. You know what all the reporting's going to be like. You know, he was basically that meme for me. You know, he was the dog with the cup of tea, where the whole house is on fire around them. Yeah. This is fine. This is fine. Yeah. I've just said replay. This is fine.
And bearing in mind, this is the fella who, on a number of occasions in the past couple of years, has got a cob on. I've joked about this in the past. Got a cob on with journalists because they're looking for a headline, and he's going to them, "Don't try and get me to say something, because then you'll just put a headline." You're like, lad, you gave everyone the biggest headline they were looking for, and you just by the way, you just volunteered it.
Shows
no
on
one
it,
even came for it.
Radio on it, TV programs on it.
Everyone calling us all cunts.
We're going to do a show on This Is Anfield about the 8 games he might want replayed.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you know, the other, you know, again, the other side is that, you know, when they show emotion, we tend to love it, don't we? We do like it. And, you know, Klopp himself has said previously, you cannot win without tactical things, but the emotion makes the difference. And you know, he's played on that, hasn't he? And I actually think that, you know, one of the reasons he came here is because he knows we're emotional
100%.
As a fan base. He knows, like, it's a romantic club, like we get behind the side and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's why he picked it, because he said that weird thing about United, didn't he? That it was like an adult version of Disneyland.
Yeah.
And therefore he didn't fancy it. But yeah, so the nerds, they have to have this unbelievable level of dedication. And I found a quote that sort of highlights that. Roberto De Zerbi, the Brighton manager, he says, I follow perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. So my work is never finished. My idea is that I'd like to achieve perfection. Is that the road to insanity? Many coaches are a bit crazy, and I think I might be one of the craziest. When I say crazy, I mean you want to give your players the importance of your work in your life, in this case football, the vision of your work. He mentions Bielsa. Bielsa lives for his work, and me too. It's very close to an obsession. And that's what we're saying, isn't it? You know, like there are probably other jobs or other professions where it's similar. And, you know, you hear, don't you, about, like, you know, all these LinkedIn biffs who, you know, every waking hour of their life, they're working on something or they're doing something and they never ever chill out. Not for me, that, like, I'm probably not for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I could hack it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd go mad.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you know, when we suggest that maybe they're mad, I don't think it's the biggest leap. Bielsa, who I mentioned already, his nickname is the crazy one. And of course, he sits on buckets, which is a bit mad.
Well, he looks mad, doesn't he?
He looks mad. The Leeds started selling buckets, which is wild. Yeah. People buying a bucket because the manager sits on a bucket. But there's quite a few things about him that I just thought I'd throw in. And I really enjoyed going down a rabbit hole and finding all of these. So hopefully, you know, you'll enjoy hearing about them as well out there. So various things during his time at Leeds. So he was spotted sitting off in a Mackey's after a pre-season match against York. But you just don't expect that, do you? You know what I mean? That's so out of context, isn't it? It's like, oh, there's the manager of Leeds United getting a cheeseburger.
This hasn't dawned on me before, though, but doesn't he strike as the type of people that just leave alone?
Yeah, probably.
I can't imagine people. He doesn't give off an approachable vibe, does he?
No.
So I can imagine him just being able to sit in Mackey's and people just be like, "That's Marco Bielsa over there."
I reckon. I've got a little theory about him as well. I reckon like he could absolutely smash English, and he just persisted with the translator thing. Because when he's out and about in Mackey's, then he can just go like,
yeah,
just jib you.
Yeah, didn't Pochettino did that for ages, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I was like, he can't speak English, and it was like, nah, I just can't be arsed.
So he was also spotted as well. He'd regularly have meetings with his staff in a Costa coffee. He used to rent only a 1-bedroom flat as well. He also had an apartment built for himself at the training ground, so he could just kip there.
That one. I've worked in law firms in London where the first day, it was when I was very young, like first places I worked, and when you first got there, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like they had an unbelievable restaurant. They had rooms to sleep in. They had a gym. They had a physio on site. They had a dry cleaners. And you're like, this is unbelievable. And after a few weeks, you realize why. It's so you never have to leave.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is fucking dark.
Yeah.
And as soon as I read that, I was like, yep, that for me is the one. Like loads of them are funny, but that one is, you're a fucking obsessed. Because he's thinking, he's going, well, why would I have a flat that's 20 minutes away and that wastes 20 minutes every morning getting there and 20 minutes going home when I can just sleep here?
And that's obsession. There's more belters coming up.
Some of these are amazing.
He randomly fitted a log burner at the training ground, and every day one player was charged with keeping the fire going. If it went out, there was no punishment, but he would know that he'd let everybody down. I mean, how do you even come up with that? Tell you what,
and how does that, imagine,
log burner.
Yeah, and these are the bits where, you know, like, you can see how it works with certain groups of players. But then, and we've seen this at Liverpool, then someone like that comes into a dressing room full of Champions League winners and international footballers and goes, right, you're doing the log burner today. And they go, fuck off. Why? How does that help us tactically? It's like, no, it's just a discipline thing.
My thing.
You're like,
do it.
I don't need it.
Light the log burner. He raffled off a Volkswagen Polo to his staff at Christmas. Random. Nice. But this is my favourite.
This is the best one.
This is the blue line. So this was in The Guardian. So, you know, I'm not making the thing up. The Guardian's piece went as such. It says, there was consternation at Leeds Council. Why had a painted blue line appeared on the streets of Wetherby, running from outside Marcelo Bielsa's flat to Leeds Thorpe Arch training ground? The call duly went into the club to ask the question, and it's good fun imagining the reaction. Blue paint? Ah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ridiculous. We'll look into it. Yeah, we know. Bielsa and one of his assistants, an old guy from Chile, had been spotted walking the route with a trundle wheel, and a video was uploaded to social media. It looked like a scene from the last of the summer wine, and the paint would appear the following day. And what it was all down to, apparently the Leeds manager had planned to cycle into work and he didn't want to concentrate on the logistics of it, merely lock onto the blue line and leave his mind free to think about other things, namely the club's quest for promotion. So he painted a blue line to show him the route on his
without
bike.
asking for permission off anyone. Like,
I'll get to trundle wheel and all. Can't wait.
Do you know what I love about him as well? Though? He always feels like in the other thing you're going to go on to as well, the Spygate thing. He always feels like the way he's got like a wizened old guy from Chile. He feels like he's got like this gang of other weird fellas with him who are all dead old. And it's what I like about Guardiola. He always has these like little old Spanish fellas around him. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I like magic and there's a mystique that like magicians often have like do a team of like secret people behind the scenes setting up all the gear and all that. I just like that feel of him. It's just odd. It's just really odd.
Apparently as well, I don't think I've put this one on here, but another thing I read was that he's got like a nerd network.
What's that?
And it's just like nerds who like are obsessive about football, the world over, and he engages with them and he's given some of them jobs and like he talks to them all, and it's just like this network of gonks,
just normal fellas
who give him information about footy, yeah. And like apparently, like I say, some of them have impressed him so much that he's took them on, he's given them a job. Like, you are now Leeds professional gonk.
I love that. Imagine that. Imagine being the owner of a club and you're like, who's this? And like some fella from the nerd network.
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah, he just used to send me stuff on the internet.
What do you do, mate?
Job.
I'm a gonk.
Yeah.
Oh, sad. Spygate, of course, people I think will know that one, but just in case you don't, January 2019, a member of his staff was caught watching a Derby County training session. It later transpired that he'd been running similar practices since he arrived at the club, covertly gathering information on just about every team his side had come up against. His response to that was a presentation showing his preparation for every game, where he basically, did this presentation in front of journalists that went on and on and on and on, and he went through loads of slides. And I don't know what it's meant to prove, but he just did it anyway. He paid the subsequent £200,000 fine himself too.
But I love that. It's a bit like on one of the other shows we talked about the Saudi Arabian guy. I know this is a weird like comparison, but the Saudi Arabian guy who's asked about the sports washing, and he's just like, yeah. Like, I love the way they went to him. You've been spying on other clubs. And I remember the press conference, and in Spanish he was just like, yeah. And he was like, why? I don't understand why everyone isn't doing it. Why shouldn't we should all be doing it? You should be. You're not trying hard enough. If you're not spying on the other clubs, you're not trying hard enough. And there's a part of me that's like, yeah. Why aren't we spying? I can imagine the owners phoning Klopp. Are we spying on the other clubs? We fucking should be.
Should be.
Get Pep Linders down in some camouflage gear.
Get a drone on the go. He was also number one candidate to take over at Everton. But he was only prepared to move to Goodison to coach the under-21 side. Under Bielsa's proposal, he said he would manage the youth side while an interim coach took charge of the first team, allowing him to ready the younger players for the start of the following season, and then he would have taken over permanently in the summer. It turns out Everton weren't up for that.
Imagine how that conversation went, though. It's like, no, Marco, I think you misunderstand. We want you to manage the first team. He's like, yeah, I don't want to manage the first team. I want to manage the under 20.
Yeah, it's a wild.
And they'd be going to him, no, but mate, we need a new manager because we're shit and we're going to get relegated. And I can imagine him going, yeah, but don't worry about it if you get relegated. Like, don't worry about that. I'll box you off next year with the under 21s.
Yeah, he apparently said his methods wouldn't work on the first team squad mid-season, so that was the sticking point, and they jibbed it. Some of the ones, just the other managers and mad moments. I absolutely love this one, and I had to throw this one in. This was Joe Kinnear. So this is an edited transcript of when he was interim manager at Newcastle. So he comes out to the press and his opening line, this is October 2008. Which one is Simon Bird? He's the Daily Mirror's Northeast football writer. Simon Bird, me. Joe Kinnear, you're a cunt. And Simon Bird says, thank you.
I love this when you put it in. I was like, God, I'd forgotten he'd been their manager. And then I'd forgotten this exchange. Imagine this now. Like, it was funny enough back then. Imagine it now.
Imagine it now as well, the way, like, you know, everything. Well, I mean, there was footage of it, I seem to remember. But then he does another one. Which one is Hickman? Which was Niall Hickman, the football writer for The Express at the time. Kinnear says, you are out of order, absolutely fucking out of order. If you do it again, I'm telling you, you can fuck off and you can go to another ground. I won't come and stand for it. That fucking crap. No fucking way. Lies. Fuck. You're saying I turned up and the players fucked off. No, Joe, have you read it? It doesn't actually say that. Have you read it? I've fucking read it. I've read it. But it doesn't say that. Have you read it?
It's just fucking brilliant.
It's brilliant. Isn't it? Yeah, I wish, I'd been there.
When you think the stuff managers get fined for now, like what they can't say, and he's just come straight out and gone, which one's this?
Yeah, which one's Simon Bird? Which one's Simon Bird? You're a cunt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.
It's just brilliant.
These are just ones. These are just ones that, you know, I basically sat down the other night and just went, right, what managers can I remember who were a bit mad? And I've just gone from there. So they're absolutely wild. Do tell us yours. We are going to do something on Patreon this week over there. We're going to start, which I think can be a series of shows, to be honest now. We're going to do football knobheads. So if you want to know who our football knobheads are, you'll have to sign up to our Patreon to find out. You can sign up from as little as £1 a week, and you get access to all our archive as well. 23 shows as it stands is on there at the moment. So yeah, football knobheads. So I've got a massive list now of football knobheads. I reckon there's more manager weirdos as well, to be honest. So if you want to send in yours, or definitely, you think we missed someone out obvious, throw it into the comments. Egil Olsen's my next one, which is going back some time, but he just stuck in my mind because it was wellies. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
And he wore wellies on the sidelines. He wore wellies at training. These mad wellies with the top rolled over, he was that comedian. And there's more. You remember him? And he used to wear them mad left and right wellies. Jimmy Cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of a Jimmy Cricket going on with his mad wellies. And fucking hell, this, I said before about Leeds selling fucking buckets because the manager sat on one. Wimbledon, when he was the manager of Wimbledon, started stocking Egil Olsen wellies, $9.99.
I think if any clubs, anyone from any clubs are listening to this, from the marketing department, they'd be like, we're missing a trick here. We should get Klopp to start wearing something and then we can sell them. Branded ones, make a fucking fortune.
Well, there's been people knocking around, basically, looking a bit too like Klopp, hasn't there?
Kloppish,
do you know what I mean? Wearing the calf, the bins when he was at the bins, and bit mad. But yeah, Egil Olsen rocked up then at Selhurst Park, as it was then, and said there was only 2 teams in the world he'd always dreamed of managing: Brazil and Wimbledon. Not sure. And yeah, he knocked around in these wellies, which at one point several members of the Wimbledon squad, who were of course known as the Crazy Gang, they burned his wellies in celebration at winning a game. Apparently his wellies were $5,000.
I've just got onto that.
$5,000 wellies.
What the fuck's in wellies to make them $5,000?
A few other things about him as well. Apparently, he knew the height of every mountain in every country and the size in square meters of every country in the world and every nation's population. And he obviously boasted about that fact because how was it got out otherwise? Do you know what I mean? Another mad thing he did, he used to walk to training in his wellies, and he'd stop strangers on the street and kick off on them about smoking. I mean, in London, I'm guessing, if you're on Wimbledon Common or something, you can probably get away with that kind of thing, can't you? But, imagine him here. Imagine him walking around like Anfield. Hey, mate, smoking. You don't want to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Poof.
Yeah. But I only vaguely remember him. And it's funny, too, when you talk about this stuff with the likes of Bielsa and Klopp and Guardiola, and they get away with it because they're great. Was he a good man? Did he do anything good in his managerial career? Because otherwise, you're just an odd fella, aren't you? If you're not a boss manager as well, you're just an odd fella walking around the streets. Think about without him being a footy manager, if you just describe these things, he knows he knows the height of every mountain in every country, the size in square meters of every country and every nation's population. He wears these wellies and he walks around the streets stopping people in cars, telling them to stop smoking. Like that's mental health problems. Do you know what I mean?
It's a bit
that's
mad.
Care in the community type of things.
Yeah, there's
like,
a few red flags, Eggle.
Yeah, we should be checking in on this fella.
Yeah. Vinnie Jones wasn't a fan of him. He said, my only regret was that I never got the chance to chin him. Jones has actually left Wimbledon 2 years earlier. There was also, I love this story. So Terry Burton was one of his coaches. He said he never scouted an opposition side, this is Eggle Olsen, because he said, why should he? It's all about the way we play, whatever their approach is. He soon lost control of a fractious dressing room. One afternoon, he left the training ground as a taxi rolled up, returning a bunch of injured players from a lunchtime drinking session. As the cab drew to a halt, the occupants fell out of the back door fighting, and they didn't even look up as Olsen sidestepped them on his walk home. But this is the best bit. The nadir came at Bradford. Burton recalls that Olsen was so dispirited he seemed not to follow what was going on. After about 10 minutes, John Hartson had been sent off, and Burton asked him why he had not changed the team's shape. Boss, we need to do something. John's gone, Burton said. What do you mean John's gone, said Olsen. He's been sent off, said Burton. Has he? Said Olsen. So he's managing a match and hasn't clocked someone got sent off.
Bear in mind, this
Wow.
comes off the back of like us joking last week about the Chris Kamara famous one on Sky.
Yeah.
Where he's just doing it like Joe, observing a game, and us criticising VAR officials for not watching a match properly and know what's going on. This is like another level, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
next level. The manager
Unbelievable.
of the team is like, what? Who's been sent off?
Another one, not loads to say on him. He was definitely weird. He was definitely a weirdo. Christian Gross.
Yeah, but this line, when I first read this, I was like, this is the line that if he's a brilliant manager, people go, that was genius, that. But the problem is when you say things like this and you're not.
But that was it. He was just a bit mad. Like it was a bit mad at the time. I remember that he'd even got the job. No one had really heard of him. And I think there was definitely a thing around this era of footy where it just became like fashionable to employ a foreign coach.
Yeah, but I was thinking about this at the weekend. I think we're back into a similar era where, because I think it was that it was like, oh, we need to find the next like clever foreign manager to come in, and that's why he ended up getting a job. But I was thinking at the weekend about like Bournemouth. Bournemouth have sacked Gary O'Neill, who like worked a miracle last year, didn't he? So clearly a good coach, like unfashionable. No one fancied him. Everyone wrote them off. But he took over Scott Parker, who's highly rated, and turned them around and got them out of relegation by a distance. So comfortable in the end, wasn't it? And then got sacked. And they were like, we're going in a different direction. And they've done that thing where they're trying to find like the De Zerbi. Yeah. They're trying to find another dessert, and they've just been absolutely shit. And that's not to say they won't turn it round, but I do feel like there's another, that we're in that era again, do you mean, of like...
They were really bad at the weekend. Like, I mean, you know, I don't know how many Blues watch us these days, but like all I can say is if you're going to Goodison Park against that Everton and you're shipping 25 shots against... I don't know.
Sort of not right.
I don't hold out much hope for you.
Yeah.
Gross. He got the tube to White Hart Lane and wanted for some reason to make a big deal about it in like his opening press conference. So he held aloft his tube ticket and said, "I want this to become the ticket to the dreams." And he was largely buzzed off. I remember he became very quickly a laughing stock. His opening game was a 1-0 home defeat to Palace, who eventually ended the season in last place. They also lost 6-1 and 4-0 to Chelsea and Coventry not soon after, and he didn't last very long. This is a good one. I wondered whether you even remembered him or whether people out there will remember him. Felix McGrath. Do you remember him?
I remember his name.
Yeah, bit of another one where it's just like definitely a mad fella. So he was known as this big disciplinarian, and he overruled a doctor at Fulham who was treating Breda Hangeland's thigh strain. Apparently goes in and says, no, that's not what we're doing. Go and get some cream cheese. massage it into the leg, then add some alcohol, and most importantly, call your mother tonight.
That's my favourite bit. Because I remember the cream cheese story, but I like that bit at the end.
Cream cheese and alcohol and ring your ma.
I can imagine the physio tends to going, boss, we've done the cream cheese and we've done the alcohol. Doesn't seem to be getting any better. He's gone, did he remember to phone his mum? Like, oh, fuck, no, we never.
That's why it didn't work.
That's why it didn't work, you fucking pricks.
Philadelphia, yes. Red wine, yes. Didn't ring me ma, bastard. He was sacked following relegation and 11 games without a win. There's various other like mad stories about him as well. There was one about he'd make them go on long runs in searing summer heat and hide their water bottles to toughen them up, in his words. That's just mad, mate. Like, if you're running in the sun, you're going to need a drink. Apparently they called the players, like on the slide, called him Saddam Hussein. And I like some of the detail about the cream cheese story as well, about the kit man getting sent out to a Tesco, having to drive along the A3 to go and buy cheese. I love about that, like the detail of it. I can imagine him going to the physio, no, just get the cream cheese out the fridge. And the physio's going, what? He's going, get the cream cheese out the fridge. Haven't you got any cream cheese? And the physio's going, why would we keep cream cheese? Like, for fucking treating thigh injuries. This place is a fucking shithole. And the doctor got off as well.
Get to Tesco and get some cream cheese.
The doctor jibbed it.
No surprise there, though. Imagine his conversation when he got home that night. I've had a fucking weird day there, love. What's gone on? Do you remember all those years I've been studying physiotherapy and treating all these professional footballers? It's wild, isn't it? There was a couple of stories from Steve Sidwell, which were great as well. Story doesn't tell us whether it worked. No, but I think we can guess it never. I think it will take a wild guess. That never took off, did it? Well, it never caught on, did it? No. So, the club doctor left shortly after. Steve Sidwell as well tells a few stories which are pretty good. There's video of him kicking around with him, telling them, and he tells them quite well, to be honest. One was that he said that he used to just stare at you. So he said, like, he'd ask to see you, and he'd go into his office, and he wouldn't say anything. And so, the players started having this competition of how long can you go in, sit down in his office, and you can get like the longest time before like you crack. And it says because like he said he went in himself, and he said like you'd be sitting opposite him, and he'd just look at you. And so he said he'd just stare back and go, well, what was it you wanted then, boss? Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. And then he'd start talking then. But if you didn't do the opening line, he wouldn't. And so they were all racking up these minutes, just going in and staring at the manager, which is just absolutely wild. What a use of a day. There's another one as well, which is absolutely wild as well, which he told, there was a game where they'd played particularly badly. And so he called them in the next day and said, right, get in your positions on the pitch. So they all get in the positions, and he was like, he didn't take no balls out onto the pitch, and they're all sort of going like, well, what's going on here? And then he just made them stand in position and just said, well, you didn't fancy moving yesterday, but at the games, so you're not going to move now. And they just all had to stand there in the positions on a pitch on a windy day, just going, what's this doing? What's this about? I like the little details of that story as well. It's like, we weren't allowed to look at each other. Yeah. So you imagine like you'd look at your mate and go, what the fuck's this? You go, stop looking at each other. It's weird, isn't it? Just proper you can weird. Tell with stuff like that. He strikes me as someone who's like, read like a shitty psychology book at some point, and he's gone, like you shouldn't talk. Like that's a therapist trick, isn't it? You don't talk before the other person. Yeah, to see what they want to really talk about. Let it come out what they're going to talk about. I can imagine he's read something like that and gone, I'll do that. And then this one, it's like, I just always loved it. What are we trying to achieve? Do you know, what did you hope to achieve from it? Imagine being the owner again. Going, what the fuck are you doing with my players? Yeah. It's just not going to work, is it? I mean, even less so now. You know, like there's plenty of power, isn't there, around players, and we know they can kick up a fuss through their agents, and ultimately they all seem to get what they want at the end of the day, whether that's a move or whatever. So the idea that that's going to work in this field, fucking hell. There was another one as well where they'd been beaten, and he brought them in and made them do 3 sessions in one day, straight after playing 90 minutes the day before. 3 sessions, some of them just pure running until they were actually close to dropping. Again, that doesn't seem like the best idea in the middle of a season.
Yeah, and just them standing on. Sidwell says it was a cold day. There's a couple of lads with gloves on. There were leaves blowing across the pitch, and you couldn't make any eye contact. You just had to stand there. It was for about 40 minutes, just stood there, and he'd just walk around, then stop, walk around to the other side of the pitch, then stop. Sound like you'd just be going, what are we learning here?
But I wonder how many of these fellas. I talk about this a lot in my job, like the spectrum of, you know, mental health issues, and I always say everybody is. It's why it's called a spectrum. Everybody's on it somewhere for all these different things: autism, ADHD, anything you want to say as a label. I can talk about it for hours. But I always think with fellas like this, like if you took them to the doctors and were like, just assess him, they'd be like, he's off the charts. He shouldn't be managing a football team.
I mean, you know, we even, you know, our managers, you know, at Liverpool, you know, Rafa was a bit mad, wasn't he?
Well, I was going to mention Rafa before. Like, he's definitely an oddball, wasn't he? Like, and we loved him. I've often looked back at the Rafa era and reflected on it as I've got older and learned more, because we loved him. Like, our little generation loved him because he came along and he gave us that fucking thing, didn't he? Like, he gave us a European Cup win when we'd had to put up with fucking decades of listening to our dads and uncles and all the older fellas talking about San Etienne and Rome and all this fucking shit. And we'd had to just listen to it. So we got him and he won us the European Cup with a team of like vagabonds, basically. So we loved him. But I remember my uncles hated him. And I look back now at some of the things he did objectively and go, yeah, it was odd, wasn't it? If I don't look at it through the eyes of I'm just blindly like biased towards him, it's just odd. Did a lot of odd,
he did
stuff.
And he was, you know, ended up ultimately being quite divisive, didn't he? Because there were definitely like, you know, fans who wanted him gone and wanted him out, and then others who like defended absolutely everything he did. You know, when he got the list out about Ferguson, you know, when he went that one where he just turned up and said, as usual, I will just be, coaching and training.
I'll be focusing on coaching and training. But
he said that to every question, didn't he?
It was because it was Hicks, I think, wasn't it? It'd been asked about him and he said, because Rafa had been criticising him, and Hicks had said he just needs to focus on coaching his team. That every question he just went, I'll just be focusing on coaching my team. But you just made me think something these have all got in common. Really fucking stubborn bastards, aren't they? 100%. All of them. You question any of them and they go, nope, I'm right. Yeah. And like, okay.
I remember being in a press conference when Rafa was there once, and it was away. I think it was away at City, and I went in the press conference after the game, like, and there was this fella. He was a knob, to be honest. Worked for that shit rag, so you know, join the dots. Anyway, so he asked Rafa this question, and it was so arsey, and it was unbelievable. Like how he worded it, how he said it. He was dead aggressive towards Rafa. He basically said, like, you know, one of the players, I can't remember who the player was, he said, you said on Thursday that he wouldn't be fit for this game, and then he was out there playing. And Rafa went, he was better on Friday.
What an answer.
It was just great. Just like complete, you know, like he did this big thing, like, because I was thinking in my head, like if I was Rafa, I remember sitting there thinking, I'd say to him, I'm what, like, I can say what I want when I want.
Answer to you,
like, who are you? It's not Watergate. Do you know what I mean? And he just completely said, better on Friday. Sad.
Yeah.
That'll do us, I think, on the weirdos, on the football managers who are weirdos, and whether indeed it is a weird thing to do, and whether we put pressure on them and all the rest of it. So hope you enjoyed that particular bit. We are going to talk about something I spotted in the media next, our media challenge section. But before that, I just wanted to give this a shout. On our Patreon show the other week, we were talking about Ricky Gervais's Afterlife show, and it prompted Steve Mullen to comment. Just caught up with this brilliant show. I agree that Afterlife is the most accurate description of a weekly newspaper office seen on the telly. As a young reporter in the 90s, I remember doing a story about a parrot that lived in a chippy in Whittle and would only eat chips. The headline was "Chirpy Chirp Chip Chip," when on page one with a picture of said parrot happy days. And stay and the afterlife are spot on. Working for small local newspapers is wild, or it certainly used to be back in those days, and they just have you doing absolute shite. I mentioned on the Patreon show, didn't I, that I had to report repeatedly on sightings of this beast in Riverca Valley in Ellesmere Port. It's just a cat, I think. Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
But do you know what I mean?
Love that conclusion. I hope that was the last line of your article.
Oh, no.
Just a cat, I think.
I rang up experts and rang Chester Zoo and, got all these quotes about feral wildcats and their likelihood of them being in Ellesmere Port. But it was absolute nonsense. Do you know what I mean? Like people standing on roads looking concerned with a concerned face. And it'd be like, blah, blah, who saw the wildcat on Thursday? The beast of Riverca Valley or Riverca Park.
See, that's the only thing, actually. Far be it from me to, tell Ricky Gervais how he could improve his, phenomenal TV shows. But the one thing that I don't think they captured and they could have done in that was the photographs in local papers.
Yeah.
Because they always just take a photo at the end, wouldn't he? He'd go to his mate, take a photo of it.
There's a Twitter, isn't there? Angry people in local newspapers.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
I'll have to get on that. That's one of my favourites, because the Echo even do it.
Yeah.
Me and my mates used to joke about it. It was like, you can tell it. I'd always remember one, it was about people who'd the flight had been cancelled and couldn't get to the cup final or something like that, European Cup final. And it was always the same. You could picture the photographer always doing the same direction, saying to them, okay, hold your ticket up and point at it and pull a sad face.
Yeah.
That's it.
Really bad. And I mean, some of the photographers as well, some of them were good, but some of them were fucking shit. There was one fella, I won't name him just in case and all that, but he was a knob and he was really bad. And I remember once he did a picture where it was a fella who, I'd booked a job, and it was a fella who was an undertaker, but in his spare time he did bodybuilding and he'd won some competition or whatever. Now, you can see where I'm going with this, can't you? And that's what he did. What you're thinking is what he did. He took a picture of the fella fucking basically benching a coffin. And when the picture came through, I was just like, mate, I don't think this is in the best taste. Do you know what I mean? And also, if you've ordered that coffin and you've paid for that coffin, you recognise the coffin in the paper with him benching it.
Fucking hell.
I don't think they're going to be pleased. So we left that picture. He went back and just got one of them, doing the bodybuilding minus the coffin.
Minus the coffin.
Fucking dickhead. Okay. I spotted this story in the paper and I just thought, this is absolutely bizarre. And why is it just sitting there? And why is it being said? And what basically? So this is Chris Philp, if that is indeed how you say his name. He's the police minister. And he's basically said, if you see a shoplifter, arrest them yourself. And it's I don't know if you've seen, there's in one of the nationals, I think it's the Mirror, they've been doing a campaign about rising shoplifting and all this. And if you're the government or you're involved in the government, your solution is, let's just tell ordinary people to try and nick someone themselves. I mean, I saw a lad once in Clayton Square, and he was the security guard for B&M. And one of them where don't think he'd been out of fucking short trousers long, you know what I mean? And I was just thinking lad, you're an absolute fucking wet lettuce. Why are you doing that job? And he was standing in the middle of Clayton Square arguing with this baghead who'd obviously robbed from there. And he was right up in his face and all that. And I just thought, not for £1 million, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would not, and also the lad, why are you going that far over the thing? He's outside the shop now, so you haven't stopped him. He's gone.
Yeah.
You're fronting him. He could have anything on him. Yeah. It's just not worth it, mate. Do you know what I mean?
This is beyond your. It's beyond your jurisdiction, mate. Isn't it? What are you hoping to achieve here?
And I just find it mad that So they're saying that there's been a problem with it, and blah blah blah. He says. He's called on retailers to instruct the security guards to intervene when safe to do so and use the power of arrest. He also said members of the public, particularly shop staff, must see it as their role to help the fight against shoplifting, warning that otherwise it would just escalate. Although we wanted to see faster and better police responses to shoplifting, he accepted they can't be everywhere. Speaking at a fringe event hosted by the Policy Exchange think tank at the Conservative Party conference, he said, "I'd just like to remind everyone that the wider public, including shop staff and security guards, do have the power of citizens' arrest. Where it's safe to do so, I'd encourage that to be used, because if you do just let people walk in and take stuff and walk out without proper challenge, including potentially a physical challenge, then it will just escalate. While I want the faster and better police response, they can't be everywhere, so I'd still think about stores setting that up in some cases." Wild.
Mate, it's, my take on, politics generally and stuff like that. Like, the way I think about the world now, we shouldn't generalize too much apart from for comic effect generally. And, I'm not into the whole, we slag off the Tories and Labour are great. Like, your political affiliation is probably more clear than mine, but we've talked in the past, I've always been left-leaning and Labour voter, all the rest of it. But then, I don't want to get into the whole, they must be cunts because they're Tories and because there must be lots of, nice Tories who want the best. But I read stuff like this and I just feel like old Conservative politicians, from previous governments, from when we were growing up, I often think of them and think, don't you look at the current Conservative government and think, you're a fucking weird lot?
Yeah.
At least, I remember one of them saying, I might have said this before, but he was talking about the way politics used to be. He said he used to look across at the front bench opposite him in the House of Commons, and it was full of retired lawyers, not retired, but former lawyers, former accountants, engineers, people who had life experience, and then they'd come into politics. So therefore, we had better people running the place. So you could disagree with who's meant to be running it. You could think Conservatives are knobheads, or you can think Labour are knobheads, but at least everyone's got a bit of something about them. And I feel like we've gone into an era now where this seems to be the Tory party's policy on everything. Just sort it out yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you remember when
Leave it alone.
When the heating crisis first started, and it was the energy crisis, and people are dying, old people are dying in their houses, and Tory people are going on telly going, why are you fucking complaining?
Yeah.
Just put tinfoil against your radiators. And you're watching it going, are you fucking messing?
I know.
So, sorry, this is where we've got to now. So you could sort out the police, but instead of you sorting out the police, we should just fucking box this off ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the solution. Oh, sound. Well, I'll tell you what, why do we fucking bother with the government at all then? Why don't we just fuck them off and just run the whole thing ourselves?
Yeah, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Mick the Baghead's robbing some razors there from B&M. Oh shit, I'll put me shopping down. I'll forget that I've got to sort me nan out today, and I'll fucking challenge Mick the Baghead.
Why don't we just start carrying fucking shotguns around with us, and I'll just fucking shoot them. And then when they go, you can't learn how to shoot people, I go, Chris Philp told me to sort it out myself. Yeah. Well, I'm not that hard, so how do you want me to stop him? The easiest thing to do was to get a fucking gun, and Chris Philp told me to.
And that's what everyone should start doing. And he was going to get away with them razors.
He was going to rob them, Chris. He was going to rob them, Chris.
Anyway, yeah, well, that got the reaction I thought. Fact of the week then. I am still going with my facts of the week. Once again, I have used his books before, but shout out for Ken Pye and his Even More Merseyside Tales, curious and amazing true stories from history. Boss little books. This one's about Prescott, and it made me laugh because, the road that is mentioned in this, I grew up there basically. So there's a long road that runs, from town all the way up to Prescott, and even in the really early iterations of maps of Liverpool or whatever, you can see that road it's like a dead old road, and they turnpiked it. So they started charging tolls, and basically everyone in Prescott booted off about it. But what's mad about this is, I read this earlier and I thought this is funny. It said, because of Prescott Town's dreadful reputation for unruly behaviour and drunkenness, in 1759, the people of nearby Liverpool became convinced they were about to be invaded and attacked by mobs of Prescott villains. So in October of that year, the Corporation of Liverpool appointed a committee to appraise and value the arms and to defend the town from the insults of the Prescott mob. And it just goes on to say, that there was this really important road, as I say, which still exists, Liverpool Road, East Prescott Road, all of that. They all sort of, they're what was this road, essentially. And there's a series of tolls because it was a dead important route for like coal and various goods, and they put these little toll booths and toll houses, and apparently, like, you know, people weren't that into it and kicked off about it. So there's another bit in it this was it. It said, in the 7 miles between Liverpool and Prescott, there were 4 toll bars located at Fairfield, Old Swan, Nottingham and Huyton. And anyone who tried to avoid travelling through the turnpikes found that others were also installed on the branch roads. So if you wanted to move yourself or your goods, then there was no escape. The people of Prescott were incensed by this obstruction to their freedom of movement and this new financial burden on their commerce. He also adds Ken in his book, which I like the way he does stuff like this. He adds, and to think that early in the 17th century, letters to Liverpool used to be addressed to Liverpool near Prescott. So like Prescott was sort of more
the bigger
important.
Thing.
Yeah,
that's mad, isn't it?
It is mad. And then, you know, there are Shakespeare links to Prescott as well, which is why we now have Shakespeare North, the theatre in Prescott, and it is very good. The theatre there, Shakespeare North, is lovely. I went and watched Christmas Carol there last year, and very good it was as well. So, you know, I recommend you go and check that out. It's lovely. They basically made the theatre as close as they can to what they think would have been theatres of that era. And it's lovely, like, and it's dead nice, and it's different. It's like, you know, you sit in like a bit of a dip, and the stage is in the middle. You know, so it's not like sort of, you know, your traditional like empire type theatre. You sit around like this sort of hexagon shape, and then they perform the play above you in the middle, if you like, and it's boss. I'm going to go again at some point. Nice. So that's my fact of the week.
Lovely.
And that is the show done. That is the 36th episode of The Late Challenge. I didn't do the intro this time, but in case you want to know, I'm Gareth Roberts. He's Paul Coe. We'll be back next week. And if you want more from us, do check out our stuff over on Patreon. Is right. And if you want Liverpool stuff, we're on This Is Anfield as well. See you next week.